Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Hunt. I'm a partner at Stace Hammond and the head of the Migration Partners immigration team here. Now, today is the 25th of June. Today we had a webinar with Immigration New Zealand, which gave us a lot of insight as to what's going on at Immigration New Zealand. I didn't want to do a full article on this, just wanted to sort of get across to you my notes that I took during the webinar, and just a couple of quick pointers as to what we found out today. Sorry, there is no sort of structured format in this. I haven't sort of put into order. It's purely just going through the order that they provided it to us. Hope there's something here that's of use to you. So I'm just going to go through these now. Now, first thing is that no applications from overseas are currently being granted. The reason for this is that under the Immigration Act, Section 43, they cannot approve a visa in which the person who gets the visa cannot actually enter New Zealand. And so for people overseas who are applying for a visa with the border controls in place, it means they can't come into the country. So there's no point in granting them a visa. For that reason, they're not processing visas from those people who are overseas. Now, of course, there are exceptions. So, of course, those who are working sort of in the medical industry, or those who have an exception granted by the Minister of Immigration can get a visa granted, but those are very much exceptions. We currently have one being processed. We handle a lot of applications, we have one. So it's not that many going through. I think from last I heard there's about 400 that have been granted, so there aren't that many. My colour of my screen, not quite sure what's going on there, but let's continue. So next thing is for those who are onshore, there's discussions about how long things are being taken to allocate. Now, work visas, they've been told, have increased in speed. So work visas who are onshore, those who are going for a new work visa, whether it's in a partnership or under essential skills, taking 10 working days to allocate. So it means that you make the application, it sits in queue, and it gets allocated to an immigration officer. It's taking 10 days, working days now, which is actually very, very quick. Now, skilled migrant is one that we're having a few issues with, just with the numbers. Now, with skilled migrant, there's a maximum number of applications. They're called the NZ RP, and it's the maximum they can do every year. This year they haven't got a number set by the government, so they're going by last year's figures. And the smaller the number, the slower the application, because they have a maximum number of residency visas they can provide. Sorry about that, trying to sort out the lighting issues here. Okay, so with the skilled migrant, there's currently 9,000 applications sitting in queue. So 9,000 people have made an application, and they are sitting there waiting to be allocated. Now this is, you've gone through the original expression of interest, the first stage, you then get drawn, you provide the documentation, you then sit in queue for a long period of time. So there's 9,000 people sitting in queue. I'm sure I have a great deal of those. Sadly, it's just, clients are sitting there and waiting a long time. And we're currently seeing applications that were submitted in December 2018 are now being allocated. So we're looking at sort of 16 months between making the application and actually getting allocated to an immigration officer. So it is not a fast process at present. On top of that, there's almost 3,000 people sitting in the expression of interest pool, so looking to get drawn in that first stage. So that's going to add to that as well. If you don't understand how the skilled migrant process works, go onto our website. I've done an article on that, breaking down all the levels and how it actually works, the process in place. We can help you through that. Now, next thing, of course, is the parent category. This was due to open, I think draws supposed to open about April. This was about bringing in your parents to come and get residency in New Zealand. That remains closed with no date on when that's going to open. As stated previously, there's no applications from overseas currently, and those applications for the parent category are generally for those people who are overseas. So there's no rush to open that up. I'm sorry for my clients who are waiting for that. Next one, I've had a few inquiries from people who have had entry conditions. So often you'll get a visa and you have a right to come to New Zealand between a certain date. Once you get here, that visa will then extend for a number of sort of years after that. So that's the entry condition. Now, for a number of my clients or inquiries I've had, those dates have passed. The conditions have expired because they couldn't come into the country. Now they are looking at this. They realise that it's not just a fairness thing. It's unfortunate for the applicants, and the applicants do want to come here at some point, and they don't want to go through the application process again with the cost and the hassle. So they are looking at whether they can sort of extend those entry conditions or what they can do with that. So we'll come back to you on that one. Now, just a quick note, actually, they didn't mention that the people who are coming into New Zealand they are typically residents and citizens. There are a small number who are work visa holders who are getting through on an exception. It's only actually 5% are not residents and citizens. So the vast majority, 95% who you see on the news who are going to these hotels and in quarantine are actually New Zealand citizens or residents. So it's a very small number otherwise. So that's being considered. We've covered that. Now, in regards to work visas, one of the great things they were doing this year was getting rid of ANSCO with essential skills work visas, because ANSCO is just the horrible system of way of sort of defining what a job is. Now, ANSCO was planned to be gone in July, and that is still the case. So end of July, they're looking at changing the essential skills work visa, so ANSCO will be gone. So that will be fantastic for those with work visas coming up, which actually quite a few will have that, especially those who had their work visas extended to September. They'll be looking at that and be under the new regime, which will basically be around the region you're working in and the salary. So that would be good. And accreditation for all employers comes through March 2021 is what they're now planning for that. Now, in regards to the overseas branches, we have all the branches overseas are still closed. So Immigration New Zealand is purely just in New Zealand. New Zealand branches are all open. They're all doing their jobs as normal, usual rates people who are there. But for overseas, we have Beijing. They're looking at opening soonish, depending on how Beijing looks with their COVID responses. There's been a bit of a surge in the last few days. Manila and Mumbai are definitely closed. They'll be closed for a while. There's still a lot of COVID in those areas. Some of the staff actually from Manila and Mumbai are actually being moved back to New Zealand. So they're working from New Zealand. So we have sort of boosted the New Zealand numbers by bringing people in from overseas. Now, the next one, of course, is Apia. Apia is going to be open in the next week or two. They're looking at that. They have sort of figures that have been changing back and forth, but looking in the next week or two, someone's going up there soon to get that going. Now, those overseas branches, when they open up, because typically the overseas branches handle applications from overseas, but because overseas applications are basically stopped, they'll be handling New Zealand applications, which will sort of take some pressure off the New Zealand branches, which is fantastic. As I said, the border is still closed with only certain exceptions. Now, in regards to those of you who have work conditions, so you have a work visa which requires, of course, 30 hours work a week, and you may have had those hours reduced due to lower workload. There is no set requirements yet, no set response as to that. Immigration New Zealand, they said themselves they are being fair as to how they respond to those situations, and my experience with Immigration New Zealand is that they are very, very fair. They look at these situations and know they're humans. They understand these things are going on, and they won't do the whole, well, it's less than 30 hours and out you go. So they will look at that on a case-by-case basis. There is no sort of set requirements or set understanding. It will very much be looking at it, and probably looking at it in a way that going forward, is that reduced hours going to be permanent, or is it going to be just for a short period? And that'll probably be a big factor in it. Now, the one visa, actually, I had one question that went in there with regards to investment visas as to the travel requirements for that, and unfortunately my one question was they came back with it, will come back to us. So it wasn't really answered, but they have so much on their plate. Investment visas are one of the less common visas. Now, for those of you who are working in the health sector, but you're working in what they call the lower skilled area, as it stands currently, you can get a 1-year work visa and essential skills for a lower skilled job, and you maximum of 3 of those in a row before you leave the country for a year. They are looking at this currently, and whether they will allow an additional 4th year to that to allow you to stay in the country for that little bit longer. Again, watch this space, they'll come back to us on it. And the last thing was that, actually there's 2 last things. First thing was that currently with the exception process, you're applying for an exception to the rules to come to the country, whether you're coming in as a partner of a New Zealander and you need that visa or that allowance, or you're coming in as a healthcare worker or some other reason why, or a film producer. You have to apply for an exception process, which is currently done via email, essentially. Via email, you fill out an Excel spreadsheet and you sort of send it through. I've done a couple of them for clients. That's going to become an online form, with most of the applications are. It's going to be sort of late July, early in August. So this is going to be a long-term thing. We're not looking at the borders opening for some time. The other one they're going to do is change the variation conditions, which is currently done in the paper form. So if you want to change, vary your jobs, go from job to job, or vary some condition to your visa, that's totally done on a paper form, which is just not quite right. That is also being looked at going to the online system, which most of the applications are going through now. And that was basically what I got from today's webinar with Immigration New Zealand. We're having another one soon, hopefully. I think it was very, very useful. A lot of answers that for my clients who've been asking these questions, and immigration couldn't provide an answer to. So there was a lot in there. So I've gone through it. It's taken 11 minutes to go through, but it was a lot to go through. So hopefully you understood what I've said. All the best. See you next time, and we'll have another video up soon for Immigration Partners. As part of Stace Hammond, kia kaha. Have a good Thursday.